What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Thursday, February 18th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, just a 3-game slate here tonight. So let's take a look at the point guard position. I'm going to give you a couple value plays here. My first value play is Corey Joseph from the Sacramento Kings playing the Miami Heat, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and although they've been pretty good versus opposing point guards, Corey Joseph, he scored 31, 26, and 22 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 26, and 28 minutes. And he had a 22, 21, and 15% usage rate in those games. He's projected at 15.9 fantasy points here tonight, which is more around his season average, but he's been playing many more minutes, so I think he's going to score around 20 fantasy points here tonight and get you 5 times value or more. He's $3,800 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in this game, so I like Corey Joseph here versus the Miami Heat. Okay, the other value play that I like here tonight, and guys, both of these plays are risky plays, but they're low salary, and based on the minutes they're playing, I think they got some pretty big upside. So I like Tyler Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets playing the LA Lakers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. Tyler Johnson, he has scored 23, 13, and 11 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 32, 22, and 14 minutes. So I like that he played 32 minutes last game. Who knows how many minutes he's going to play here tonight, but if he can get 25 to 30 minutes in this game, he should be able to hit value no problem. Now, he's projected at 15 fantasy points here tonight. I think he can score 20 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's $3,600 FanDuel salary and $300 less on DraftKings. So I like that DraftKings price. But the price is low enough on both sides here, especially if he's going to get anywhere close to 30 minutes. So I like Tyler Johnson here versus the LA Lakers. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Tyler Hero from the Miami Heat playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the absolute worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Tyler Hero has averaged 30 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 24% usage rate. He scored 42, 43, and 25 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 39, 40, and 32 minutes. He's projected at 31.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's $6,100 FanDuel salary and $200 less on DraftKings. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in this game. And he put up over 40 fantasy points his last 2 games. He's playing a ton of minutes. And even if he only gets his season average, he'll be getting you 5 times value or more. So I think he's underpriced in a great matchup here. So I like Tyler Hero here versus the Sacramento Kings. The other shooting guard that I like is Tyrese Halliburton from the Sacramento Kings playing the Miami Heat. So Tyrese Halliburton has averaged 28.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 29 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 17, 36, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 30, 30, and 26 minutes. He's projected at 28.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's 5,500 FanDuel salary and 500 more on DraftKings. So I like Tyrese Halliburton here versus the Miami Heat.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on.
Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I like Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the worst defense overall, and they give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Jimmy Butler has averaged 44.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. He scored 48, 62, and 38 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 40, 37, and 31 minutes. He's projected at 47.2 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's 9,200 FanDuel salary, but he's 400 less on DraftKings. So I like that DraftKings price. Now, Jimmy Butler has scored 50, 46, and 49 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Kings. So that's excellent player versus team history. So I like Jimmy Butler here versus the Sacramento Kings. Another small forward that I like is LeBron James from the LA Lakers playing the Brooklyn Nets, who have the 5th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing small forwards, LeBron James has averaged 48.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 32% usage rate. He scored 54, 50, and 52 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 37, 30, and 34 minutes. He's projected at 50.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.8 times value. He's 10,500 FanDuel salary, and he's 300 less on DraftKings. So I like this pick because take a look at this. LeBron James has scored 57, 57, 55, 65, and 62 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Brooklyn Nets. That is fantastic player versus team history. It doesn't get any better than that. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 237 points scored in this game. So this is a high-scoring game, a nice game to stack. Could be competitive. You want the studs on this, one stud from each team. Take your value from the Miami Heat. That's a lineup build I think I'm going to go with. But I like LeBron James here versus the Brooklyn Nets. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Jeff Green from the Brooklyn Nets playing the LA Lakers, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing power forwards. But Jeff Green has scored 35, 19, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 24, 23, and 28 minutes. He had a 30% usage rate last game, and he's projected at 25 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's 4,900 FanDuel salary and 300 more on DraftKings. So we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 237 points scored in this game. So get yourself some players from the Brooklyn Nets and the LA Lakers. So I like Jeff Green here versus the LA Lakers. Okay, another power forward that I like, especially on DraftKings, is Chris Boucher from the Toronto Raptors playing the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a good defense overall, and they've been good versus opposing power forwards. But Chris Boucher has averaged 30.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 23 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. But he scored 37, 15, and 38 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 30, 18, and 25 minutes. He's projected at 31.8 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's only 4.4 times value because he's a little overpriced on FanDuel. $7,200 FanDuel salary, but he's $900 less on DraftKings. So I love that DraftKings price. So this is a DraftKings play only for me. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game. And he scored 37, 21, 53, and 20 fantasy points in the last 4 games versus the Bucks. So he's got some pretty big upside for a low price tag on DraftKings. So I like Chris Boucher here versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Okay, moving on to the center position. Oh, I didn't even pick a center. Give me a second. Okay, guys, there's not much on the slate for centers, but I did find a couple of picks that look interesting. So I like DeAndre Jordan from the Brooklyn Nets playing the LA Lakers, who have a good defense overall. They've been good versus opposing centers, but DeAndre Jordan has averaged 21.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 22 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. Now he scored 22 and 25 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 28 and 27 minutes. So he's projected at 25.4 fantasy points here tonight. On FanDuel, that's only 4.7 times value because he's $5,400 FanDuel salary, but he's $500 less on DraftKings. So that would be over 5 times value if he scores 25 fantasy points or more. And we know Vegas thinks there's going to be a ton of points in this game. So I think this makes a nice center pick from the Brooklyn Nets, especially on DraftKings. And he scored 24, 47, 43, and 24 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Lakers. So excellent player versus team history. So I like DeAndre Jordan here versus the LA Lakers. Now the other center that I like, especially on DraftKings, probably only on DraftKings, is Hassan Whiteside from the Sacramento Kings playing the Miami Heat. Now Hassan Whiteside, he's only averaged 19.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 15 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. But his minutes did spike last game, and he scored 60 fantasy points in 23 minutes. And in the previous 2 games, he scored 16 and 25 fantasy points, playing 15 and 16 minutes. Now, this guy's a point per minute monster, so pretty much give him a point per minute that he's out there. Let's take a look and see what his actual point per minute production is. Yeah, his fantasy points per minute is 1.41 fantasy points per minute. So if he's going to get 20 or more minutes in this game, you can expect him to put up around 25 fantasy points. Now, on FanDuel, he's overpriced. He's $6,000 FanDuel salary, but on DraftKings, he's $1,400 less. So he's only $4,600 DraftKings salary. So if he scored 25 fantasy points, that would be way over 5 times value on DraftKings. And he's got monster upside. When this guy gets minutes, he's productive. I don't know why he doesn't play more. But anyways, Vegas thinks there's going to be 223.5 points scored in this game. So he also scored 19, 44, and 48 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Miami Heat. So everything seems to be kind of aligning for this to be a good game for Hassan Whiteside here versus the Miami Heat.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.